your daily Gameface. I am Dr. Kim Lannon here, survived from my Monday Boston Marathon, number 11 in the books.
Nice.
And
you can't hear anything?
For some reason, I can't hear you through my monitor, but I can hear you on the outside of my monitor.
Okay.
Why can't I hear you through the monitor?
I don't know.
Why do we always have problems?
Well, how long were you sitting in that chair before we started?
Well, so my earphones don't work, so I'm going to be going, huh? But anyway, so good morning. I'm here. I survived.
Yes.
It was actually so right into the year of me and the year of you, right? Because it is spring still, and we're still springing. But talk about. I love the marathon. I love marathons in general, but I love the Boston Marathon, as you know, because it has such a tremendous storyline for so many people. And there's nothing greater than the storylines that come from people that run the Boston Marathon. I mean, I've run other marathons. So this was 11 for me for Boston. And then, and this was my 15th marathon, I think. Maybe 16th. I think it was 15th.
Wow.
And all the other ones I've run, I've run Disney, I've run Marine Corps, I've run Chicago, whatever. Not whatever, like bad, but Boston, there's something about Boston, right? And so in keeping with the theme of obviously the year of you, but I had someone write to me, and she might be listening right now, but I had someone write to me, and I will write back to you. She wrote me a very beautiful long email about a wonderful change that happened in her life, about something that I had given her some words of wisdom, apparently, that I didn't even realize in a while back. And she wrote me about a week and a half ago. And because of the busy schedule I keep and things that are going on in life, I didn't get a chance to get back to her. But part of my show today is going to address some of it. But then I promise to my dear friend person that wrote to me and asked me to address this, I will come back and do a full show on it about like going through adversity in a different way. But I wanted to make sure I addressed her, not by name, but just to let her know that adversity is, obviously part of, the year of everybody,
right.
and how you get through it is important. And I think that no better way to talk about how people can really thrive and grow. I saw some amazing things. I heard some amazing stories. I was excited, as you know, this is probably the most, this was a redemption year for me, only in the fact that I really needed to come back and be able to run the marathon on Marathon Monday without losing a body part.
Yeah. Was it easy without the gallbladder?
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
So it was not easy without the gallbladder, even though I did my long training runs, the extra 8 miles. Okay. So there were 2 things I had to do. So at mile 9-ish, I had a shoe issue. It was more of a sock friction issue with my shoe from the downhill running, because the first 7 miles are essentially downhill with a little up and down, but mostly downhill. And I'm running currently in flat, almost completely flat shoes. And sock choice was not a good choice. Don't know what happened. Always have run, like I have all my socks interchange in and out for all my runs. This one, didn't know what happened, but whatever. But I came prepared because I know I've been through this before. But by the time they had it really secured down this year for security around all the ins and outs of like all the places where people can hop in and out. So as much as I had people along the course, my strategist, my dear Abby and John, were hopping in front of me, trying to get to me. In some of the usual places, they kept getting turned around. So I heard many stories about their turnarounds because there were sort of, I won't say there were credible threats, but there had been, from what I was told by people who shall go unnamed from certain police departments, that they had to tighten down security because some
things were in the wind.
Things were in the way. Yeah. So it made it harder for my people to get to me. But I did have plants on the course, but they didn't have my shoes. So from mile 9, when I was really feeling it with the rub on my right foot, there was like a, what I would say, a very large rash callus sort of blister thing that started rising. I took my shoes off, and I texted ahead and said, somebody needs to bring me my blue shoes and different socks.
Wow.
So I had them all packed because I had multiple pairs. And they couldn't get to me till mile, I think 15. They finally got to me. Maybe it was 15. I can't remember. I have video. Someone videotaped me somewhere sitting on the side of the road. I was like a car change and the race car drivers. I was in and out of shoes and socks. It was funny. What a difference that made. However, the damage had been done because what I had done is I'd run about 3 miles between 9 and 15 in socks because I had to take the shoes off because they were rubbing the sock. There's some adversity for you. And it was the perfect weather day for me. Most of the time runners, especially in marathons, like 45 to 55, but it started out for me in Hopkinton around 11:15. I think it was 60, and I think it probably hit 68 at some point. I was sweating.
Yeah.
But it was great. There was a wind, there was a tailwind, there was a little headwind, there was a little bit back and forth. I got a sunburn on the right side. No issues, but when the foot issue started, there were issues in terms of me being able to proceed with running per se. So it was more of like a hobble run.
Yeah.
Then I got the new shoes, but by then I had done a little damage to the bottom of my foot. So, but I always think of myself, you know how people will compare like, well, I'm not as bad as that person. I feel like I saw people dropping like flies for other reasons, you know, because there was a lot of heat issues. People weren't prepared. They were either overdressed, maybe underhydrated, whatever. I had no cramps, whatever. But going back to your question about the gallbladder, I have, because I have scar tissue right in that spot where the gallbladder is and the sternum. Oh, I was definitely from about mile, I think 13, I think halfway, all the way to the end. I had a weird, sharp, bizarre pain that was just dull enough that simulated what was going on last year. All the way around the band, like I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
But mild. It was mild. I know it sounds weird. Which in exploring with as I call her, my other smart friend, we were talking about it, about the fact that the scar tissue takes some time to really undo itself and kind of work itself out. And I think that my runs, you know, were fine training, but
I was going to say training wouldn't have loosened out.
My training was fine. Yeah. But I think it takes a couple years. And so I'm doing research on it because, you know, me, I have to figure out like how to, so I'm doing more stretching and rubbing and whatever, but it was a little annoying because I kept having to like do a little shoulder thing because my band around my chest, I wasn't having a heart attack, by the way. It was just, it was just the scar tissue. But I wasn't having any issues, but it was a great day. Fabulous. There was some adversity, obviously. And it was just beautiful. And the crowds were beyond phenomenal this year. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's because it was a nice day. There was the Red Sox game is always going on. There was tons of stuff going on throughout. But it was crowd heaven. And when I came and did the famous turn right came up under the bridge, I do have to say, not that everyone needs to know this, but I had this great sign that was out there that it was about like, you know, if you want to puke, you have a bib. So, well, because of the gallbladder thing, I usually do it at least once or twice. I actually did a whole bunch of times this time. And I was not alone. I was feeling it out there. There were people losing it left and right this year. And I was like, wow, I am not alone in the vomit department. Sorry, everybody, but that's what happens sometimes.
Something you don't hear about.
Huh?
That's something you don't hear about.
Oh, I was like, because I'm always so like mortified when I'm like, because I'll lift my shirt up and be like, you know, whatever. Nope. This time I was like, oh no, there were men, women, children, dogs, cats, you know what I mean? Like all over, like, and I was like, oh, I'm in good shape comparatively. So, but it was funny. That sign was funny. I actually have a picture of it. Somebody took and sent it to me, but it was great in terms of, I know it sounds funny, but I got underneath the bridge. I usually do puke under the bridge. I did not puke under the bridge. I came up, turned right on Hereford, and it was
Who's got that job? Cleaning
huh?
up under the bridge.
What?
Who's got that job? Cleaning up under the
Well,
bridge
there was
after
a
the
woman.
marathon?
I felt bad for. I asked her if she was okay. She was leaning. There's a part under the Mass Ave bridge that you cannot see anybody. You have to be under the bridge with us to see us. She was leaning like against the wall of the bridge, and just like it was.
Yeah.
It's a graphic, but
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you need help?" She's like, "No." And I said, "All right." I said, "Are you sure?" And I'm sure 500 people asked her the same thing,
Yeah.
but she was just standing there against the cool wall. It was blazing sun the whole way. There was no shade. But anyway, so I came out from underneath that for the first time ever, not puking there, but I had other spots this year. But my right on Hereford, left on Boylston, the crowds this year, I don't know. It was hard. It was hard not to be emotional.
Yeah.
It was hard not. I did walk a little bit of it because I took it all in. But it was phenomenal. I get chills right now. There's nothing like running the Boston Marathon last leg. And I don't care about my time. I didn't care. All it was to redeem from last year about what happened last year and just finish. And now I've done it, and now my mindset's there. And I've I had gotten myself in really, really good shape and excited. I'm like so good. It was so good. And I finished, and there were medals, and the medal is spectacular.
Gorgeous.
People are watching. Look at that medal this year. It's like so nice. And they listened to us because last year we were a little verklempt about the medals. They were very predominantly Bank of America versus the Boston Marathon. And we all complained that it should be the Boston Marathon, the BAA.
Is that the first year it was Bank of America?
Yeah, that was the first year for Bank of America.
Yeah.
And so the logos were everywhere on everything heavy. And so we all complained because we get the surveys. And so we all complained about it. And then the medals this year are spectacular. So I brought the medal and it's very nice and it's very shiny and I love it. And it'll be number 11 in my collection.
Nice.
And it was just, and then I had, it was so cool because one of my students worked that I teach, was in the medical tent at the end and had, his service dog. So, and I get to touch the service dog. So I got a picture with him and the service dog and they came out and they met me right as soon as I got out of right through the chute. And it was very emotional. And of course, John said, "Stop crying." And I was like, "I can't."
Really?
It was so emotional. It was just so good.
It's 26 miles. You can cry a little.
It was so good for, it's exciting because, all the life stressors I have.
Yep.
Right. And it was, and it was, and the other thing too, because I'm so excited about this. So the front of my shirt, has my name. People yell your name. That makes it even better because people yell your name and I had my bib on. But on the back of me, I had it for this year. I had for Sophie, Mush, and Kalila. Yeah. And people were screaming, "Run for Sophie, run for Sophie." And I was like, it was just, it was so good. Like, I'm going to cry right now. Lou, it was just so good. It was so freaking good. And so.
What a nice payoff for all that work.
And see, I'm emotional now. So it was so good and bittersweet, obviously, but for those reasons, right? But that's who I run for. And it was, and then I run obviously for my charity. And while I was running, people donated like another $500 to my charity, throughout I was so excited.
Yeah, nice.
So yay. So thank you and a couple of people were anonymous and Kathy, thank you for donating. And Nancy, thank you for donating. And then everybody else was anonymous. So I was like, oh my God, because people were texting me after saying, "Did you know that you got more money?" So thank you for giving to the New England Patriots Foundation. We have 300 applicants that they're going through right now. Yeah. And the awards are given. This is another exciting thing. Talk about people with adversity. They give away, the $250,000 on I think it's in June this year.
Yep.
And we have a huge Patriots luncheon where we go to the Myra Craft MVP awards and we get to be part of giving all that money away that we raise. So my particular money that I raise is going to go to one particular charity or one volunteer that works for a charity that gets picked out of those 300, and they're different every year. And so I'm excited to see.
That's how it works. The individual. They go
so an individual from each of so applicants apply for the Myra Craft MVP awards for the Craft Foundation work people send in when it opens up an application for nominating a volunteer or a charity or both for a certain foundation. And then they go through all the applications and they pick the top 26. And then the top 26 they pick a person, the person that gets nominated from that charity. And then that charity is granted in the name of that person, is the whole charity's granted $10,000 each. And then the main one gets $25,000.
Yeah.
So 26 people, I think it's 26. I always think it's 25, but it's 26 people get all these grants, but they go directly to the charity from the New England Patriots Foundation. So it is one of the biggest things that the Kraft Foundation does. It's one of their near and dear things to their heart, because Myra was a big philanthropist and did tons with, Rosie's Place and all the soup kitchens down in Boston, and homelessness and veterans, and working with women and battered women's shelters and children. And I mean, it just goes endlessly, and it's all New England. So anyone from any New England state can apply. You can't apply anymore this year because the applications are closed, but next year when we do it again, we can open it up again. But it's exciting. So on that, so the money goes to that. So I'm excited because and then it banks for other parts of the charity, whatever doesn't get pushed out. So I believe that I think we raised over $250,000 just alone.
Wow.
And the charity teams that I'm involved with all together, I think we raised $6 million this year.
Holy cow.
All the charity team runners combined, I believe the number at the end of Monday night was 6 million.
Wow.
All together from all the teams. There's 40 some odd teams. So it's exciting. So I'm very excited about it, as you can say.
My takeaway is the guy who collapsed right at the finish line.
So there were a few of those, but there was one
video.
The one video of the guy and I think the Brazilian man, I wasn't there because I don't think I'd even started yet. It was the blue wave, but the Brazilian man stopped to help pick him up, and he lost some of his time to help pick him up off the ground to help him cross. It was awesome.
Yep.
So there's stories like that.
There was one that I saw where he collapsed about 7 feet before the finish line, and nobody picked him up because they were just cheering him on. They just cheered him on.
Is that the man that
literally
fell and turned himself around, was faced the other way, and then turned and crawled?
I don't think so, but he did crawl. I didn't see him turn around, but he did crawl across the line. Yeah.
Right. And people don't.
But the mentality of the people that were there, and they're just cheering him on, and just crawl that extra 4 feet. So you have to be able, so medical person, so it's just so people understand when you're watching it, because everyone always asks me why didn't anyone help? In order for you to be officially finished, you have to cross the finish line. You can get help by another runner. Oh, I see.
But under USATF rules, like the United States Track and Field Association, there's rules. There's rules, but when you're running and you're a runner, you can help someone cross the line. But you have to, at least that was the rule, is you have to be able to cross the line on your own. As soon as you get across, as soon as you get your hands across or your feet or an inch, then somebody can help pick you up off the floor. I mean, unless it's really bad, then they come out and get you. But yeah, it's the passion that people have. And we are all talking about this on the team bus going out about, and then it's certainly this marathon, as I sometimes do, not always, because of the foot thing. When I had to take my shoes off and run with my socks, I kept thinking, I won't quit. There's no way I'll quit this. And because afterwards people were saying, we thought you were going to quit.
Yeah.
Because my foot was on fire. And I was like, I would have walked, crawled, rolled. It's a Boston Marathon. Any other marathon, I probably would have DNF'd.
Yeah.
Did not finish, but not this one.
Yep.
So I didn't care how much time it took me. And there were plenty of me out there, doing the same thing. It was a great day, but it was a rough day,
Yep.
And I was just so thrilled that I got to be able to go out there and do it. And my adversity stories, which are a few, are, some people, I was running for a while with a man who was on both blades, had no legs, but he was on both blades.
Mm-hmm.
I, was with people that were with all kinds of different issues, and hearing stories as they were running, and, because you hear everything around you. And my one AirPod that I had in died, and I didn't have my other AirPod with me. So
I had one in and whatever. But and then big shout out to, and I love this man. Talk about a survivor epic of epic, I want to say, bullying bullshit of marathons. That's what it is. Of Chris Diorio.
Oh yeah.
Ran what he says is going to be his last Boston Marathon. I still would love for him. He's a great fundraiser. He does a wonderful job. He's such a humanitarian. And he I believe was the last runner in this year. I lost, they turned the trackers off, so I lost track of him, but I was watching him on Facebook because he kept putting up like where he was and stuff, and they lifted up the mats and all the stuff.
Yep.
But his story is amazing, like many people's stories, and I love him, and I love the work he does, and I love how much he is a champion for people, the underdogs especially, and the amount of people who give him they just say terrible, awful things about him being slow or shouldn't be in the like, everyone shut up.
Yeah, really.
You know what I mean? And another one, I think I talked about this last week, but another person posted up anonymously, of course. Actually, this person wasn't anonymous, because I was going to say something, but I didn't, because I couldn't find a nice thing to say, so I stopped. But it was something about, I could go out and walk it faster. And my response that I started, and I delete was, meet me in Hopkinton. I'll walk it with you. Because they were like, I can walk this faster. Yeah. I'm like, come meet me. But I didn't, because I was like, just let it go. But, like, who are you? Like,
I know.
Anybody thinks they can go out there. Let's go. I'll meet you in Hopkinton, and let's go. I'm sore today, and I have a scuffed up foot, but you think you can get out there and do it? Let's go.
Yeah.
Even me 2 days later, you want to go out and test that? Happy, but quarterback Monday morning quarterbacking, to put people in a bad space. Like, why do you have to say that? This is a person who trains. He's out there. And so what? So what that he comes in at 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, who cares? He's out there. What are you doing?
Again, I find it almost more admirable.
Right. Like, what are you doing?
For 8
like,
hours.
the person that, I'm sure this person, I have a feeling, because I think that was the person I looked up, could do it in 3 hours and 30 minutes, whatever. But, and also they were like 30 something.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not all 30.
Yep.
I mean, we're not going to run 3:30s either. Nor do we have to.
Yep.
So,
just people.
That's why Susan Hurley is awesome. She's the director of charity team. She always calls us the overqualified, because we not only run and train, but we raise money, and we work, and we have families, and we have, all this other stuff. It's very different when you just have to just go out and train to run the marathon. So all these things are adverse, and you have to get over them. And Chris does it with eloquence and great poise. And
it's the perfect skate your lane example, isn't it? Because the guy, if you run the marathon, just go out and run the marathon and enjoy it, and pay off your accomplishment. That's great. Why you got to get into other people's business? Why do you care about other people?
Because people can't help themselves.
I know.
It's amazing how I just had all these things run through. Did you just see that brain thought go through my head?
I did. But the psychological aspects of that, because you did all that work to run the marathon. He's not in your way. He's not making it more difficult for you. What's the problem?
And that's the thing. Well, and a couple of people, when they write, it's not just to Chris, it's to other, I see this to other people too, that they put things like, it diminishes the Boston Marathon. No, it doesn't. It actually enhances it. People don't come out. God love all, and by the way, I trained people this year, as I always do. Mm-hmm. I had a top 10 finisher in the elite. Just saying.
Nice.
A top 10 finisher, money winner. Just saying.
Nobody comes.
But nobody talks to me about that. Everybody talks to me about who's in the back of the pack. Nobody talks to me about my male or females that I have that are in the top 500 that finish. And I had a top 10er this year, and then I had 2 more that were in the top 500.
Nobody cares. It's about your neighbors running. That's what it's about.
People come to watch us.
Yep.
People come to see the people crawl across that finish line at 4:00 in the afternoon and 5:00 in the afternoon. People come to like cheer everybody on, families out there. Like that's the spirit. And you'll see that in almost all marathons. They don't come to see the beginning finishers. They do. There's definitely people out there, but you watch on TV, you watch WBZ or whoever carried it this year. You watch, there's people out there, but by 2:30, 3:30 and 4:30 in the afternoon, it is mobbed with people, millions of people on that running route everywhere. There wasn't one spot this year that was empty. It was deep of people. And then Boston was insane. I could hear the crowd about 2 miles away. The Sitco sign is 1 mile away. I could hear the crowds roaring and the game was over in Fenway.
Yep.
I could hear them all the way in Boylston, 1.5 miles to 2 miles away, just rolling.
Yeah.
It was amazing. That's who they're there for.
Yeah.
And so they're there. And so after I finished speaking, right, we go to dinner close by. Like I always get a reservation, so that I just have to literally walk out of the shoot and go to the reservation. And then we cheer people coming in, because people coming in like for the next, 4 hours. And it's amazing because they're not coming in by themselves. They're coming in and people wait, and the BAA, Boston Athletic Association, stays and meets them and gives them a medal and heat sheets and make sure they get food. And like the finish line's closed per se, but it's not. You get to finish. There's a reason, because everyone appreciates and respects that you've worked hard for this. And, people are always like, well, why don't you just quit? To your point, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Why don't I quit? Because it's you don't quit.
Why do you care whether
I know why, but you don't quit. So this is the psychological mentality of, that shoot for the middle people versus people who have that's why there's only 1% of the entire earth that runs a marathon.
Yeah.
That's it. 1% of all human beings are marathoners. And it doesn't matter. 26 miles at 2 hours and 4 minutes, which was the male winner, or 2 hours and 17, which was the female winner, or 8 hours and whatever, it's still 26.2 miles, whether you did it running, crawling, rolling, whatever. You still did it.
Do you know the names of the winners?
They were new to me. They were new to me this year.
Yeah, well, that's my point.
Yeah,
and
they were new
all
to
of
me.
us, I was listening to the Red Sox broadcast, and they were keeping up with the marathon with the elites.
Yeah.
And they say the name of the guy who won and the woman who won, and she broke a record, and apparently broke the women's record.
She did.
And you go, yay. And then you're onto it. That's not what you care about.
Right.
Nobody comes for that.
But for all, so
I mean,
and they were new to me. They weren't new to me as in like, I've heard of them before, but I don't remember their name. Sorry. But do you know how many people I know? Like, cause I know a lot of runners, right?
Yep.
How many people I know had amazing goals hit this year, that they milestones, PRs, all these things like that happen. But no one will know their story, but I know their story. What is Bruce saying?
Since our operation was just,
I can't hear
since your operation was a stamina better for the run. It was just basically, how'd you do without your gallbladder, basically?
Oh, my stamina was great.
Yeah.
My stamina, I don't know if he missed the beginning of the show. My stamina was awesome. It's just I did have a pain around my scar tissue and around the band about halfway through, and through the rest of it, that felt like I was having like a small little heart attack that I had to run through. But my stamina was fine, and it would have remained at full peak had I not abrased my right bottom ball of my foot and had to do a shoe change. But that's okay. You roll with it, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I took my shoes off and ran in socks for 3 miles.
Yeah, that's the most amazing part to me.
Yep. And I didn't want to end up being bloody.
Race.
What?
Or that's midway, well, about midway through, more than midway through the race. But at that point in the race, going shoeless for 3 miles.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so it was like 9, 10, 11, and it was like 9 to 12 miles. And then I put them back on, made it through and then I changed them out. It was a blur.
Yep.
I have great pictures though. The photographers, for some reason this year, thank God, I was like, they were out there in droves.
I was wondering how people feel that night. How long does it take you to recover?
I was not, knock on wood. I'm very well trained this year. So when you're well trained, you don't have a lot of soreness. My only real soreness, I mean, I was a little stiff,
Yeah.
For like no issues going up and downstairs. More like right afterwards, you just like tighten up really quickly.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, it was fine. Yesterday was a little bit, but it was mostly the bottom of my foot. And now today, the bottom, because you saw me, I'm in flip flops, recovery flip flops, and the bottom of my foot, I put tons of recovery cream on my feet, and it's still there for sure, but I'm not putting them back in sneakers for a couple days. I'm not gonna be running for a couple days. I'm gonna let that.
Do you carb up? What's the
I did not. So I did not carb. I don't
No,
carb up.
no.
I stay clean because that's how I normally eat. So I had Easter dinner. My Easter dinner was a Thai glazed salmon
Okay.
over coconut basmati rice with string beans. And I had a little bit of chocolate ice cream for the sugar. And I had 4 huge shrimp for like a shrimp cocktail beforehand. And that's all I had. And then the morning of, I had what I always eat. Like for a whole month before, I do every morning. I do a banana, and I do an oatmeal, and I always do it in the window of 2 hours before race time. So at 9 o'clock every morning, or roughly, I do exactly that, so that my body gets adjusted to that.
Yep.
So that by 11 o'clock, when I'm ready to supposedly start the race, then I am ready. And that takes care of all the the potty issues and all the other things.
Can imagine.
So, but it's a very, you run. I think when you do like an event like that, or when you're like trying to get yourself motivated, it's really not. It wasn't really about. I didn't worry about the actual running, and I didn't worry actually at all. It was more. I had thoughts of, the mental. Just it's a mental run. You don't, it's 90% mental and 10% run, if even 10%.
When you're trained, yes.
It's just when you get out there, it's all you just, again, Susan would always say, the hay's in the barn. Now just go. You just go and trust your training.
But that's the life lesson from it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because again, it's about controlling your outcomes, and we underestimate how much mental control we have over our outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of the life. Everything we're facing is kind of mental.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing that you said that, because I had someone that I ran by, and I could see she was struggling, and I said, come on. And she was like, I want to quit. And she was about 3 miles away. And I looked at her, I said, you're a 5K away. You don't quit at 5K away. And she's like, I just can't do it. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it must have been about 45 minutes after I finished, I saw her come across the finish line. I was like, yes. But she did it, and she was crying, and she was hurting, and I was like, yes. And I saw her, and I did the clap for her, and I'm sure she saw me, but I'm sure she was like, ah.
Yeah.
but I was like, you don't quit in the last 5K. You've got 3, just walk, just get there.
He's 23 miles, then quit. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were so many people, and she was in the time frame, so it wasn't like she was. Yeah. So even then, if it was, but I was just, it was good. It was just so good. Look at me, I'm like, yay! I don't want to go out and do it again today, but I'm already thinking like, I can't wait for next year.
Yeah.
So I got to fix this little band thing. To Bruce's point, I got to fix this band thing. Like I still have a little like tightness there. So I got to figure that out. I'm going to call the surgeon and say, listen, because he's an ultra marathoner. I'm like, listen,
is he? Yeah.
You got to figure out how to fix
this.
Your
surgeon is a marathoner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and his wife are ultra marathoners. That's why I loved having him, because I knew he wouldn't mess me up.
What's an ultra marathon?
Huh?
What's an ultra marathon?
Well, ultra marathon is basically anything above 26.2, but he does like 50 and 100 miles. What? Look at your face. That's what an ultra marathoner does. Mm-hmm.
50 to 100? 100 miles?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm out.
How old is he?
He's probably, my guess is he's like in his late 50s.
And he's doing 50 to 100 miles.
Uh-huh. And his wife too.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's pathological.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very addictive.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's lots of memes out there that talk about excitement and springing forward, right? With memes, it's like there's so many memes out there that are like you're running and you go through all these phases in the run. Like, I hate this. This is terrible. I'm never doing this again. Halfway through, you're like, oh, I'm halfway there. I still hate this. And by the time you get to the end, you're like, sign me up for the next one, you know? And that's what it is. And you could be bleeding, you could be passed out, and you're still like, sign me
100
up.
miles has to take 15 hours.
You what?
Has to take 12 to 15
yeah,
hours.
well, it's just like, it's like triathlons. They take forever.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. But people go out and they do them. You should see the ones that do the mountain ones.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like they do the ultra, because, like when I do the Loon Mountain race in the summer, that's 6.2.
Breaking up that scar tissue sounds like a PT thing, doesn't it?
It's what?
Sounds like a PT thing, physical therapy.
What is?
Breaking up that scar tissue.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
But that's kind of weird. I don't know. It's like right there. Yeah. I don't know. But I'll have to find out. I have PT people that I can ask.
Yeah.
But the Loon Mountain Race also hosts an ultra, and I don't know what it is. It's probably 30 miles. I don't know what it is. But I know that when I go off to do my 6.2 that are like death up that 40-degree incline at the end, that's called Upper Walking Boss, because it's you're literally on your hands and knees crawling up it because it's so steep. People are out there doing an ultra at the same time, and we all go off, and I'm just like, have fun with that. Yeah. I'll be back at the river in 2 hours.
Wow.
Relaxing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And enjoying the rest of my day while you guys are off running the mountain somewhere. I'm all for it though. Good for them. Yay.
A surgeon, and he's running 50-mile marathons.
Not me. I'm out.
That's like type
I don't bike, and I don't do ultras, and I swim, but I'm not swimming across a lake. I'll swim in a pool, but I'm not getting in a lake. And I hate biking for a very long story that I don't think I've ever shared, but it had to do with growing up as a gymnast and being forced to bike. That's all. I'll drop the mic there because
okay.
So I don't bike. So it's funny. My personal trainer's always like, let's warm up on the bike. And I've known him for over a decade, and I always look at him. I'm like, did you forget who you're talking to? I don't go on the bike. He goes, oh, that's right. So no bike for me.
We all have our things.
Yes. So I'm all set with the bike. But I think it's important. Let's go to talk about a little bit of like goal setting. Okay. So I'm talking about big marathon and all this stuff and ultras. But here's to the thing, like, okay, everyday normal people,
Yep.
Just getting up to do something today that's like a small little bite out of the apple kind of thing, right? It's just about one foot in front of the other, just going one step in front of the other, just do one step. All you have to do is one thing. That's why when I have clients, all my clients now I see are, very, they're the wellness model. They're in the, life coaching, lots of like maintenance, get to the next goal, because that's what they come for. It's so good because they're all about not setting these over the top, unreachable, non-tangible goals. It's about between now and next week, how many times can you do that one thing reasonably? And I'll get people who will say 5. And I'm like, okay, 1. And they laugh. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's just shoot for 1.
Right.
And like, but that's so stupid. Or I'll say, no, let's just get 1. And they're like, all right. And they're so baffled by the 1, but I'm very pragmatic about, let's just get 1. Because sometimes even when they say 5 and I say 1, we still come back and I didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, this week we'll do 1. And they're like, yeah, I think 1's better. And then they prove to me the next week that they could do 2, yep. or something.
I did 1 and I did another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's funny. I had a person do I call them burn letters. They do a thought dump about something that's about something really important to them that they need to get rid of. And then we burn it, they get rid of the thoughts. And it's funny because I asked them to do it and thought, they're never going to do it on this first round because it's hard, right? Yeah. You have to put out a lot and it's very personal. And they did it. And it was, you could feel their relief in doing it. And then burning it was extra fun for them.
Yep.
But so many people don't just jump right in because they avoid it. And it's like that person, it's just that little bit of extra, just push yourself. It's that last little step over the finish line, right? It's the last crawl over the finish line for some people, for just the basic thing of, don't eat that cookie, or go to the gym for 5 minutes, or go for a walk down to the mailbox and back. Those are the basics. I had one person last week, that was 2 weeks ago now. I said, let's try to do like a plank for 30 seconds, a half plank for 30 seconds. They were like, that's not enough. I'm like, but you can't do 30 seconds. So we got to do 30 seconds before we can do 2 minutes. But people want to do they want the marathon instead of the mile.
Oh, it's funny. Someone I may not share a house with. We've had this discussion 3 times in a row now, and I've kept track because it's funny as hell. We talk about painting the living room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, pick 6 colors. Now pick one out of the 6 that you pick, right? That's where the conversation starts. I'll paint the living room. I have no problem doing it. By the end of the conversation, we're putting a 3rd floor in the house. It's like, it just escalates. Then we got to do this. Then we got to buy that. Then we got to.
I love that.
Yeah. And
I love that. It's so true.
You get nothing accomplished.
Right. Because
I'm just trying to paint a living room. You're building a 3rd floor.
Well, that's what happens. People grow their dream, or they grow their thought process and they manifest into something bigger that they can't handle. So the manifestation can't be put into tangible terms. There's a reason why the whole SMART goal thing works, making it, manageable and attainable.
Stack wins.
Right. Because you can stack your win.
Yep.
But people they want the instant gratification so fast. They want to be able to get it right away, that it's so hard. And then it's like the hoarding house. I always say, you look at the hoarding house and people go, oh my God. And then they walk away from it because they keep just stacking stuff in, instead of saying the front door, clear off the stoop. Let's just get rid of the garbage on the front stoop just so we can open the door. But people have it in their mind. They have to do the whole house at once. Just like the paint of the living room turns into putting on a 3rd floor. I know that. I understand that. It's like you start talking about like, let's just do the garage door. Then it's the side of the house, and let's add new windows and whatever else it is.
But that's how nothing gets done.
Well, right. Because people procrastinate because they don't want to have the adverse reaction and the adverse situation, because then that becomes really painful. I have people texting me about things. My nose is itching me all of a sudden. It must be spring, because all of a sudden I've got allergy stuff going on.
It must be brutal right now.
I'm like,
everything is budding. It's like the last 2 or 3 days, everything is going
I know,
nuts.
and you can hear my voice still, right?
No,
that's allergies.
Pretty clear, actually.
I'm sorry that I'm like nosy, itchy.
But keep focused and do the task, do the small. It's baby steps. Everything is baby steps.
Yep, and
that's why weight loss and financial control is so important, because that gives you skill set to do everything else.
And people don't have that.
Yeah.
And it's not to be negative, is that people have, if you have a typical non-challenged thought process, let's say, right? Like you're just a person that kind of goes with the flow in everyday life, and no real big anxieties, no big depression, like no schizophrenia, no mental health big. People get very stuck in that inability to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
But then you add in those things, which most people have, not schizophrenia, or bipolar, but anxiety, depression, mood stuff. It gets in the way of people being able to do a baby step, because people, aren't taught, right? We're socialized. We're not taught about finances, first of all, to talk about goal setting, right? We're not taught about finances. We have to learn that somehow on our own. And we're not really taught about, goal setting, unless you're coming from a goal setting background like I did. You're not taught that.
Yep.
School doesn't teach that. Did your school teach that?
No.
I mean, like, I don't even think that was ever I don't think that those words were ever mentioned in school.
It's ancient Egypt for every other year for.
What?
It was ancient Egypt every other year for 12
years.
We
go. Yeah. Ancient Egypt. There you go. I went to Catholic school, and I don't think that was ever a thing. No, that was never.
Like ancient Egypt? Or
no, ancient Egypt was, but I'm just thinking goal setting. It was never.
No, and you can leverage that. You build momentum, like financial goals. Put $100 away over the next 2 paychecks or something small. Then you accomplish it, and you start to see that number, and you gain momentum, and it starts to roll.
That's like the marathon, right?
Yeah.
Is like, and getting people. I just tell people how I have explain it like that. Talk about a very cool way to do this. And it always blows people's minds. I'll say, what's your habit? If they're talking about finances in my office, I'll say, what's your habit? And they'll say, what do you mean? They're like, well, I say, where do you spend your most money? A lot of people won't know. And I say, I know exactly where it is. And they'll say, where? And I'll say Starbucks, or I'll say Dunkin' Donuts, or else if they're a cigarette smoker. And then I'll say, and I have a little chart, and all I have to do is pull out the chart. I'm like, hold 1 second. I'll be like, you spend $8 a week on, and times this many days a week, and whatever. And I give them, I'm like, and they always are like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you just took half of that, and they're like, no, I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm going to do the whole thing, and I'm like, you can do the whole thing. But if you just did half of those Starbucks, or half of those Dunkin' Donuts, or half of your fast food lunches, or whatever it is, or cut out cigarettes are expensive, or, half the wine, or half, whatever, you're going to put that away. And there you go. Let alone when you tell people, like, just take from your finances, because people will usually say to me, oh, I have nowhere to draw $10 from, or I have nowhere to draw another $100 from. But when I point out, but you spend it on those things.
Yeah.
They're like, oh.
When Mint first came out, which is an online site where they've been sold now, but you link your accounts and they tell you where you spend, you get different vendors. And when I found out how much I spent on Dunkin' Donuts a given week, and I wouldn't take on a car payment, but I was basically doing a car payment to Dunkin' Donuts every month, and it's like, then you stop buying tea instead of going to Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Exactly.
Save a little money. It's the money is out there loose. You just have to hurt it. That's all.
And that's what it is. And people just don't realize, because it's so easy and automatic. Welcome, Chris. I don't know if Chris just joined us, because he missed me talking about him earlier. But if you are just joining us, Chris, welcome. I did talk about you earlier, and how super proud I am of you and excited I am for you. And I was talking about people who add adversity to our lives and have lots of negative, things to say and whatever. But if people can't read what he's written, he says, good morning, Doc. Thanks for the pep up on Monday. Now I have to ice my fingers after typing that, because everything still hurts. So he just joined us. So Chris, you'll have to go back and listen, but I did give you some kudos, and so proud of you and everything you do. And it was really good. So we were talking about people taking baby steps, and Chris did his one step in front of the other. And I was saying how on Facebook I was watching, he'd be saying like, oh, I did feel it for him when it was like, there go the water stations. And I was like, oh, wherever he was. And because I was like, oh God, but there's always people out there, but it's that perseverance of being able to just take one step at a time, whether it's, walking through the finances and putting away $5 a week or a day, or,
But when you go on that journey to get your finances together or lose weight, and you do it correctly, that just transfers to everything. That skill set just transfers to everything. Small goals, staying present, being in the moment, do what you can do, accomplish what you can accomplish. Don't get overwhelmed by the big goal. You don't have to lose 50 pounds. Just eat well this week.
Right. Or eat well today.
Eat well today.
Just for today.
Yeah.
That's what I try to give all of my patients, is just for today. Don't do that thing, or do this thing.
Yeah. Just
for today. It's I don't know what's wrong with my nose. It's this room. It like encases all the allergy stuff. But it's, I mean, if you can take that into your year of you right now, of like, just for today, do that thing, eat clean for today. Walk a half a mile today, walk up and down your stairs 2 times if you haven't done, like, whatever it is, or call that friend that you haven't called. Even those basic things that you procrastinate, that make the shoulders heavy, the heart heavy, the feelings of life heavy on you, just go ahead and just say, I'm just going to do it. I had a really good inspiration. I mean, I'm usually pretty good at this, but I had an excellent inspiration a few weeks ago. Someone was talking to me about something related to Sophie, my lovely little, that passed. And they were saying like, you just need to do blah, 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 blah. And I won't go into what it was, and I was like, yeah, I just need to do that. I don't know why I didn't even think of it like that, which I'm so good at doing that. But I think when you're so close to doing, you just are like, ah. And then literally within like moments of me doing it, I had this whole turnaround of my day. And it was like, oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
But I know that, and I do it a lot. But then there's moments where we all go into that, like, oh, I didn't think
Well,
of
that's
that.
the thing about this work. Everyone thinks it's linear, and it's not
It's
linear.
not.
You have good days, you have bad days. You
Right.
deal with things well. Sometimes you don't deal with things other. It's just you have to keep coming back to that thought
Well,
process. And
Well, I think in my field too, especially, and I think in medical fields in general, there's a unfortunate misnomer that somehow we're not human beings and we are held to this level of like we can. I take a lot of shit from people sometimes, and um, and yeah, that comes with the territory because people are ill sometimes, right? And I wouldn't say that for 99% of my clientele, but over my 30 years, I've taken some kicks, right?
Yep.
But we're human beings at the end of the day.
Yep.
And there's boundaries and there's lines to be drawn. And I think it's important, like when you're doing, you know, whether you work in business or finance or you're fast food or you're a lawyer or you're a doctor or whatever, at the end of the day, you're a human being.
Mhm.
And you don't need to do anything but take care of yourself first. And I think that in the year of you, you really need to take care of yourself first to be able to manage that, you know, all those pieces to make sure you can function, you can do what's in your day, you can make sure that you manifest what you want for your day and not have, you know, you're not someone's whipping post or verbal spot.
Yep.
As you know what I'm referring to.
I do.
That you can just say anything you want and think that, oh, I can say what I want and do what I want and everything's fine. No, Chris is a human being. You're a human being. I'm a human being. And at the end of the day, you know, you deal with what's in today. And sometimes that's advocating for yourself. Sometimes that's saving money. Sometimes that's finding a different job. Sometimes that's, you know, doing whatever you need to do to get forward, to get to the finish line.
Important point interpersonal, but it's also an important point with all the things you're dealing with. At the end of the day, you're just human. So at a certain point in the night, you can set down what's weighing on you.
Right.
It's like, well, we'll get at them tomorrow. There's nothing I can do right now. So we can put it down.
Which people say is hard. I know that that's hard because I'll give that advice that, you know, you have to set down that stuff, you know, so that you can, you know, so you can get your mind settled. And sometimes there's things that weigh heavy on people. You know, negativity, toxicity, lots of stuff that's in family or personal lives. And sometimes that's hard, but do what you can with that. That's why I think thought dumping is good, writing it down, getting rid of it, putting it on paper.
That's a baby steps thing too, isn't it? Because you can watch a Seinfeld episode or go out and garden or
my nose is killing me.
Or go out and garden or whatever it is.
During the day,
that relieves you.
Yes.
For a half an hour. This is a skill set you build as well. You don't have to let it go. You don't have to let it go all night. Let it go. Say for an hour, I'm going to put this aside. And
I was just teaching about that in my class.
I'm going to sit on a deck with a cup of tea and enjoy myself.
And I was just saying that I was teaching that about, we were talking about forgiveness in class last week and the concept of forgiveness and how over the years of doing my job, I've gone away from calling it forgiveness and not really looking at it like forgiveness is a very untangible.
Yeah.
Right. It really is for people and more about like letting something pass. That doesn't mean you forget about it. Doesn't mean that someone gets away with something. That's one of the big things, right? It's about the fact that you're letting just something not necessarily go because people go, well, if I let it go, then they get away with it or they win. Or it's no, you're letting it pass. You're letting it sit because you don't have control over it in this moment. And sometimes that's really hard. And it's very stressful. And we all go through that.
Isn't that acceptance?
And so that's what I said to the class last week. I said, I call it acceptance in the moment.
Yep.
Acceptance for what's in the moment of, you know, we were talking about parenting last week in class. And I was saying, you know, parents sometimes, many times lack the capacity to give us what we need. They might have given another child something that they needed because their capacity meets that need. But maybe for some of us, our parents lack the capacity to meet the needs that we had. That doesn't mean our needs aren't right or important. It means that they just weren't there. So we have to accept that and let go of the hope that somehow we're ever going to get that. Hence my hopeaholic thing that I talk about with people, that if you're a hopeaholic and you always hope that someone's going to give you the love and the approval and all the things that you ever thought you were supposed to have, not everybody's going to give you that. And some people will turn on you and family do that, you know? So
This
it's
is where
important to
I had this
realize.
book for years that's passed now. I can't write it now because no one will want to read it. But everything I need to learn in life, I learned from Bill Belichick.
Oh, yeah.
Bill was great at this.
Yes.
It is what it is
Right.
acceptance.
Right.
We're on to Cincinnati is the next step, right? It is what it is. We're on to Cincinnati. You put those two together for a lot of situations,
Right.
and that's going to get you a long way.
Right. It's what's
That on
interesting.
to Cincinnati press conference was a life changer. That was life altering.
Well, and you hear me all the time. What I say this morning after I told you the story, I said, I'm on to next year.
Yeah.
Right. And also, and then it's also like when I first started, I'm going to go back to the marathon for a second. When people first run the marathon or run a big thing or do a big thing, whatever it is, they often have the post, the after, like, sadness because they've done all this training and they've been with people and all that stuff goes away. You've been with people for 25 weeks. And I don't get that anymore because I'm on to the next thing. Like now I'm like, oh, space is now opened up I'm on to the next thing. Yep. Like right now tonight, because I'm not running, usually right at the end of work, I go for 5 to 10 mile run. Not tonight. So I'm on to the next thing. That doesn't mean by next week I go back at it, but I just have I'm on to the next thing. So that's what you do. You just adjust in and go to the next thing. But people get stuck with, the past and or worrying about the future, like way down the line, because it's all the things that you can't control from back then and undo, and all the things you can't control in the future because you have no control. So you fear monger it of like all the things that can come up potentially. And, and we all do that. I certainly can't say that I don't do that, but I catch it all the time and do the cognitive behavioral thing because we're, again, human beings.
That's what I learned from parenting. It was the first lesson I learned from parenting was
letting things go.
Well, you start
accepting.
You mourn. They change phases so quickly, and you tend to mourn.
Yeah,
it's like when they start crawling or walking, it's like, oh, she used to just sit with me,
right,
and you tend to mourn it. But then, what happens is the next phase gives you something really great. So stop mourning the last phase and pay attention to the great thing you're getting in this phase.
And I think that's a great thing for growth right now in spring. Talk about like a great sort of wrap up in coming into the end of the show is we got a lot of kids, right? 18. I have these parent conversations all the time. Their kids are getting ready to go off to college, 18, right? And one of the biggest mistakes I've seen over my 30 years of doing this is parents get stuck. And this is very common psychologically. Parents get stuck in their kids staying at the age. It's like they leave the house, go to college, and then all of a sudden when they come back over the next 4 years, they never age. So they still keep treating them the same way as if they were like the 18-year-old or the 17-year-old, whatever they are, instead of it being like, you've got to grow with them.
Yep.
You have to grow and learn and change as they grow and learn and change, because the family dynamic gets really messed up even more if it already had turmoil.
Yep.
When a kid goes to college and comes back and then the parent expects them to still be that kid and not see the growth in the change. And so the parent doesn't learn and doesn't grow with them. And that causes lots of problems. And so so for parents that are listening, for the next, talk about taking baby steps and moving forward, baby step through the next couple of months as you get into August and your kids are getting ready to walk away, because they're getting ready to leap and grow, and you've got to leap and grow with them, or else you're going to have backup. And I see it all the time. Come, December, this coming December, they'll come home and I get parents calling me or saying, you need to work on this with them because they're being fresh and they're not letting me know what time they're coming. I'm like, yeah, because for the past 4.5 months, they've been doing their lives. They've been adulting.
Yep. They
and
haven't
now
been
you
telling
expect
anybody
them
when
to
they're
be
coming home.
little kids again. What?
Yeah. They're not telling anybody when they're expecting to come home. They're just living their lives.
Right. Well, that's what I say. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you expecting them to say, hey, I'll be home at a certain time, or, whatever, but, and being courteous, but they're adults, and yes, courtesy. And then I do have conversations with kids about courtesy and saying, if you're going to come in at midnight, make sure you let your parents know. And if it's going to be later or not, you got to let them know, because they worry. But it's not that they're trying to be some are trying to control.
Yes.
But most of them are pretty good about it. But I have to do the whole grow, learn, and change, and tell them when they come home, because they'll be like, they're coming home for the weekend and they want to spend time with their friends, not me. And I'm like, right, because they're 19 and they don't want to hang out with you.
And I know it sounds kind of Zen-like, but you just got to deal with everything you're dealing with as an opportunity. You got to turn
Right.
everything into an opportunity.
Right. Well, that's the
Even
whole
the negative
theme.
things are an opportunity because they
Right.
give you an opportunity to change and find a better path.
Right. And if you have the capacity to have the opportunities in front of you to keep growing and learning and changing, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, the year of you.
The
Grow,
year of
learn,
you.
and change.
Yep.
Grow, learn, and change. It's like we're getting ready to go into the planting season. It's like planting yourself in, you're in like the seedling, right? You're in the
Yep.
spring. Grow yourself, do things, get yourself moving, learn something, change. Stop being in that stuck spot or stop adding negativity to other people's life or your own.
Mhm.
Grow, learn, and change.
Especially your own.
Well, especially your own.
Yeah.
People create fields of minefields for themselves.
Yeah.
And especially when they're mentally ill, they create minefields. And there's, you know, and I don't see a lot of those people, obviously, but I used to. And there's a lot of people out there, and currently the like state of affairs for a lot of people is a lot of minefields, and it's you got to keep your mind clear of the minefields,
Mhm.
so you can function and do those, like stay in today, do your day, so you can function well, right?
Well, congratulations on another great marathon.
Thank you so much. And congratulations to everyone that was out there listening today that ran the marathon. And Chris, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And for everybody else, by the way, thanks to everyone I had hundreds of texts and like emails, and I think I've gotten to most of them because I did try.
Mhm.
If I've missed you, I will get to you, but thank you, everybody, for all the great, wonderful love. Thank you. Number 11 in the books, on to number 12. All right. And you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week.